Hello and welcome again, everybody, to another episode of the Unspun Yarns, Bleep the Patriarchy.
Bleep it, y'all.
Bleep it. Today is a very special day. We're celebrating Mother's Day in our own very special way. We have a lovely guest with us who is Momma Blackfyre herself. Or as we like to say, your feminist mom.
Yes.
Gail, welcome to the channel. It's so nice to finally meet you and to get to know you a little bit. Amy's always spoken so highly of you.
Well, thanks. Glad to be here.
Welcome to the channel.
Well, thanks. One thing I can do is talk.
Well, I see where Amy would get it from.
Yeah, this woman taught me she was the OG one, bleeping it in the 70s. So she taught me everything I know.
That's right, ladies. We got some second wave feminism knowledge that will get dropped here today, among other things. Gail, we know some about your life and the things that you've done. You've been a very interesting, shall we say, life. So, you want to just give us a little brief synopsis of?
Sure.
Gail Blackfyre, Esquire.
I was raised in rural Oklahoma, and ironically, which of course was very a sexist, women had their place, and with Bible verses to back that up and all. And but it's kind of ironic that the first role that I saw that I'd like to do was about 6 or 7, and that was a minister. Of course, we called him a preacher.
Oh, yes.
Minister. And of course, they would tell me immediately, if you can't be that, can't be that. So that was always confusing to me, although I don't know why I looked around, there weren't any other women preachers, but and I think I saw that as a job that could influence people, be a leader, and I didn't see women in that kind of role. And I guess it was just influencing people. I would have looked at being a teacher, but the way we were raised, college was not really a thing for the future. So it was really strange. So it was a real struggle growing up trying to play religion against feminism. And then Ms. Magazine came along during the ERA movement. And ironically, just the other day, I was listening to NPR, and it's the 50th anniversary of them. And I forgot, I think Linda Wertheimer was about her first interview, or one of her first interviews she did was with Gloria Steinem right after the first issue. And she played a bit of the interview. Gloria Steinem was talking about, they named the magazine Ms. because legally and culturally, when they were unable to identify if a woman was married or not, they would just put MS. And then I didn't remember that part of it, but I do remember just a line in there that was so powerful for me, was that, why should women be just known by their marital status, right? Why was that even important, for one thing? And so I was going, yeah, that's right. And I never, ever used Mrs. or Miss, ever. And, I always had mail addressed to me and everything. The first marriage, my first marriage, I was so dumb. I thought it was unlawful to change your name. But anyway, so I did for 4 years. I had a different name, but then I when I got divorced, I changed it back to my maiden name. And then, had Amy's dad had no problem when we got married with me keeping my maiden name. And I know people would ask me, well, why do you want to do that? Won't people be confused or Amy confused or Janice? No. And people who had different last names would just assume I remarried, and Amy had others, something. People said, well, it's weird for a parent and a child to have two different last names. Well, no, it's not really, because of married and divorced. So
yeah, there are mixed families.
All types of blended families have.
The
smorgasbord of last names.
Exactly. So it just was all the reasons were just, nonsensical, really. And then the state of Oklahoma for years, and I mean, they did this up to about 10 years ago, when they sent the tax refund, change my name. So we had to deposit it in, and it was actually, that wasn't even my legal name. We had to deposit it in Stan's account, his dad's, and then to be cashed. It was just the most bizarre thing.
Yeah, they would go out of their way to actually, all the documents that you had your birth name, and they would go out of their way to change it to my dad's last name and my last name, which, as we all know, is Blackfyre. That is indeed on my birth certificate.
Blackfyre, yes, of course.
And my mom totally gets the Game of Thrones reference. Not even that; it's in a Song of Ice and Fire reference. No, she has no idea what I do. She just knows I love doing it. So
yes, that's true.
And speaking of Papa Blackfyre, I've got a family picture here for us where we have matching dresses. That's right. And I was platinum blonde until I was about 10, and it started getting a little bit darker. And then here we are, Mom, in Washington. That's the first time you took me to DC.
Yes.
So there's the very phallic Washington Monument behind us. And then here's little Blackfyre's first Halloween.
Oh, yes.
So dressed up. And that sweater is so early 90s, I can't even, Mom.
Hey, I can't get money for that.
I love it. I love
it. I think my mom had the same one. Hold it back up.
Really?
Oh, this one?
My mother was like the sweater queen of Virginia.
How funny.
And then here's
really good sweaters.
I think this is just on a trip, probably.
Yeah,
I really like any picture with that strawberry outfit. I think is so cute. And then here we are on the couch.
Yeah, you were very young there. You were just about
tiny.
5 years old.
And then this is the one, if you follow me on Twitter, that I posted as a promo, which is probably one of my favorite pictures. So those are all the baby pictures that I mined out of my photo album for this stream.
Put that last one back up, Amy. That's Amy discovering patriarchy for the first time. There it is.
There it is.
Patriarchy. I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Get away from me.
But yeah, and Mom, something that I've always found interesting is you had me later. I should have been a Gen Xer.
Yeah.
So you waited until you were in your late 30s to have me. So, which thanks, by the way, Gen X seems like the 80s didn't seem like. I prefer being a 90s kid. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that biological.
Don't be confused with the rest of us and unwanted.
There you go. You can't classify everybody.
Okay, this is how I look at we Gen Xers. We're the children of the baby boomers' first failed marriage. So.
Got that. Yeah.
We're like pulled between mom and dad. We've got 6 different Christmases to go to. We're used to being left to our own devices. It's fine. They'll watch TV and eat cereal and just raise themselves. And we're fine with that.
Yeah. Well, and you guys were subjected to Reagan's drug war too. That was a bad
We
thing.
did get that.
Yeah,
Among
Red Ribbon
so
Week
many
was
other
militant
things.
in the 80s.
Yeah, like the demise of the free, community college system and so many other wonderful things that could have helped everyone. But that's a whole other episode that we'll talk about that. We could talk about the Reagan years for like 3 episodes, maybe
yeah.
4. We could do a whole series on it. But yeah, 80s kid. Yeah, it was great. But the 70s were cool because, I had cool aunts that were like your mom. I just recently found out that you were a member of the armed forces. You were part of the Air Force. So so was my aunt. She was career Air Force.
Wow.
Yes. 20 years in. And
cool.
Yep. She was somebody.
I wouldn't have gone to college without the GI Bill. It made me a first generation college graduate. So it was wonderful. And it was a great experience, really good experience. And
that was your first time also meeting people from, many different
outside
places.
of Oklahoma.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And I went in with the time, I'm not sure when your aunt went in. When I went in, it was only 3 career fields were open to women.
Well, she was a nurse, so that was one of them.
Huh?
I said she was a nurse, so that was one of them.
Yeah, medical. You could be medical. You could be a clerical, and then communications. So I was in communications, and then so I went in 72, and things really started to change. I was only in active duty, and then I was in the Air National Guard because they had a program where you could get out and serve the time you had twice that in the Air National Guard. So I was really wanting to go to school. So I got out and did that. So I had experience in the Air Guard too. But so I went in 72, and just the 3 years I was active duty, there were so many changes with women. Like I said, it was just 3 jobs open when I went in, and then they started to, if they weren't combat related, which very few jobs are with Air Force, that's not their mission. Anyway, they started opening up the more jobs, and instead of looking at gender, started looking at physical ability. So there might be jobs that required you to lift, or something, objects or whatever. And instead of basing it, the criteria being on gender, it was based on physical attributes. And I can remember us all standing around, the guys and me and other people, talking about it at work and going, yeah, this is going to be really strange and everything. And I just don't see girls being able to do that. And then somebody else was saying, well, if they can lift it. And then somebody brought up one of our coworkers who was this, big girl, and she'd be able to lift anything. So why not? And then
why not? She can drive a forklift just as well as anybody,
And so they started opening up, and of course by the Iraq War, even combat missions were irrelevant, so, but yeah, it was good experience, but there was a lot of sexism that I didn't even see as sexism really then, right? And I have even evolved recently on my views about the military and this external panel to evaluate sexual assault, taking out of the command. Well, when you've been in the military, it is drummed in your head so much that you respect the chain of command, respect that, go that first, and all of that. And I was saying, it was mainly female legislatures who didn't have didn't have military experience introducing them. And I was saying, well, they just don't understand military. You can't do that. Now they're going to say, see what happens when you separate out women and we have to change everything. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute. It's not just women that get assaulted. It's gay people. It's anybody that's not white male. And it needs to be taken out.
And even if you're not the biggest guy on the block too, it can be, it's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big chicken, little chicken.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about keeping something in the chain of command is that things can easily get swept under the rug if there's not an outside force that is keeping an eye on things. It's in my opinion, the issue with the police is they police themselves. Do you trust the police to police themselves? And I don't trust them just as much as I don't trust armed forces, because they're going to want to keep things the way they are. They don't want any trouble, so they're going to silence the survivor and get them to just not make a stink about it, make a fuss about it, is how they would put it, right?
Because the sexism is systemic, so you've got to remove that review board and make it, because you're right, unless it's just like just awful, they're going to find a way, because in mine it really wasn't that bad, You should really have that fourth drink or whatever, at that party, and they're going to see it because that's how it was looked at, And I remember when I was in tech school in the military, there had been an assault then, and the solution to that was to teach us karate.
And how tall are you, Mom?
Yeah. Well, and we're going to learn that in sessions.
And that's the thing too, is that, a lot about martial arts is about using the opponent's weight against them. It takes years to learn that. Right. It's not just punching and kicking. Also, there's, speaking as someone who's interested in East Asia, there's also a huge mind element to it. You think, were they going to also teach meditation? Probably not. Karate, kung fu, it's all very mind and body, and you can't just do a 3-week course on that.
Yeah, I don't remember there being like an awareness training on how female military members aren't there for their, pleasure or whatever. So
yeah, and I think that it also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mom, but I think it was also like in academia, unfortunately, it was seen as like a dating pool. Like the professor saw female students as a dating pool. So officers could see enlisted female airmen as a dating pool. It's disgusting. It's frankly, and it's abuse of power too.
Very true. I was just a young airman, and I had a captain ask me, and this was a female captain, asked me to go out with a friend of hers. Who, and
and female enablers are also just as guilty,
that was just really weird.
And when your entire career is so linked into this structural hierarchy, and these are the people that are going to be reviewing your performance, or the people who are going to be recommending you for promotions, who are going to be, signing off on your transfer orders or all these other things, they are like God in a way.
Right.
So you want to, it's a fine line when you're walking this world to be able to advance your career and to get the best out of the military, what it has to offer, and yet you're having to navigate all these obstacles because men are shit, and given the opportunity they will be shitty, and especially in like a bro-ham society, they're like, the alpha dogs, so they kind of have that mentality anyway. Anything more than it's just theirs to toy with, theirs to fuck with. So they kind of get that little, that little power trip, a little bit of power, and it corrupts. So yeah, you're just navigating all of these obstacles, trying to get the most out of it, trying to get, in your case, you're there to get your education, which is get your education paid for, B, learn a great set of life skills, while you're in the military. Three, all of the training and what have you that the Air Force was putting into you as well. These are all going to serve you well going forward, where, having a recommendation later from one of your superior officers when you're going to, like, your first big job interview, or you don't want to have any blots on your record. You want to have that squeaky clean, not be seen as a, quote, disciplinary problem or a problem in general, because that it carries forward into your civilian life like a dark cloud.
Yeah, it does. And that's just replicated in corporate worlds, government, and
any of the structural
where the
places.
patriarchy is threatened, it's going to happen.
Oh, she said the P word. Drink.
Yep, the P word.
Yeah, and Mom, also something that I find interesting about specifically the Air Force branch of the armed forces too is how phallic planes are. There's the cockpit, right? I mean,
that's where you keep your chickens when they're roosting.
Oh yeah. So, besides, Amy may have mentioned that besides being in the Air Force, I retired from the FAA. So that was pretty interesting. Another very male-dominated field. But it was interesting because things started to really change there in a way, too. And it not only changed U.S. lives, but this started changing international in the language. And boy, did the guys object to this. But no longer should you call it a cockpit. This is not what it's supposed to be called, because that's literally what it sounds like it was. A place to put it. And so it is now the flight deck, which makes a lot more sense because your pilot may not have anything to go in that pit anyway.
And, does one operate a plane with their genitals? You always ask that question. Do you actually need a penis to do it? The answer is usually no. Right. In this case, you do not fly a plane with your cock.
I don't know what you're piloting the stick with, but
exactly. And then the poor flight attendants really took a beating in the 70s with this whole
the whole ad
waitresses and the hot pants move of that one airline. It's now defunct. I remember who it was.
Good.
It's just awful things because they are really well trained. They have to be certified too. They have to go through demonstrations where they have to get those passengers off in 90 seconds. And that is not easy to do. And so they are cabin attendants. They take care of the cabin. And that's what they are. They're not, cocktail waitresses, stewardess. They're not any of that for your pleasure. They're there for your safety. And I realize
post 9/11, they're on the front lines of fighting terrorism. Yeah. So they're not just waiters that are at 30,000 feet.
Right.
They're taking care of your safety.
They are. I did some international training, and I was down with some colleagues in Costa Rica, and I was working with some cabin attendant training with this very sharp Costa Rican young woman, and she had been a cabin attendant and then was working for the Costa Rican government to train certified cabin attendants for their government airlines. And we were all sitting around having a few drinks one night, and with some of the guy inspectors in Costa Rica. And they were kind of teasing her, and they were saying, yeah, cabin attendants, yeah, you guys are just really waitresses, right? And she goes, well, yeah, you guys are pilots, right? So you guys are really just bus drivers, right? I loved it, really shut them up,
Good for her.
So it was pretty good. So yeah.
Yeah, there was from the mid-century forward, flight attendants this was like this glamorous career option that young women would fight, like fight, even to get the opportunity to have this career. And other than the training, there are these super strict guidelines that they had to adhere to. Weight checks prior to every flight. Sometimes, and of course, they're in these tight-fitting, form-fitting, short-skirted uniforms that were required, and sometimes they had to wear girdles underneath of them in this confining
and heels.
Yes.
I mean, I know that there was more leg room back then, but I don't think the aisles were that much, easier to navigate.
No.
And when you hit turbulence and you have 4-inch heels on, no, thank you.
Right. Yeah. They couldn't be married.
Yeah, they had to appear available. Yeah.
They couldn't be pregnant in any, no.
That I didn't know. Originally, they had to be RNs. I mean, this was real early on, because they thought they didn't know how people would react in flight. They might just faint and need a nurse or something. But that was
grow up, for God's sake. Have brain sickness. Oh, God.
But that was actually before the move of this, beauty pageant type, specimens that they wanted, which was really terrible.
And then in later campaigns, they were geared up as potential wives to businessmen when they were promoting airlines as the businessman's transportation. And they were, of course, to appear young and sparkling and engage in polite, pleasant conversation, having no opinions about anything, and cater to the wealthier or the affluent businessman who is traveling because he's so important.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're all very young. You didn't see any old ones.
No, an old maid was someone in their mid-20s, and they were classified. They were called old maids if they hadn't snagged one of the good ones, in their career. So, yeah, good times.
Hadn't got their pilot.
Hadn't found their pilot hubby yet.
Bag that pilot, yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to see the diversity of flight attendants. Now men can do it, like nursing, right? And they're wearing flats. Oh, their shoes look so comfortable.
Oh, yay for them! So I just wanted to. I used to see them walk, and I go, "Oh, honey, please, just take those shoes off for me, please."
I mean, I'm sure they were happy when the Easy Spirit heel came in.
Yes,
which you could play basketball in. So
had to be.
You could dart through an airport, jump over suitcases, and make your flight on time.
Yeah, there you go.
Looking fabulous.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, a lot has changed in the airline industry, thankfully. Not just in the cabin, but of course in the flight deck.
Yes.
Who knew women could fly planes?
Really?
I've heard.
And that was my second job I wanted. I wanted to be a pilot, from watching old World War II movies when I was like 10 to 12. So it was in the back of my mind when I went in the Air Force. And then I asked somebody, I knew you'd have to be an officer, though, so there'd have to be a route to that. But they had talked about these bootstrap programs where enlisted ended up being. So I asked somebody, and they were having him in all the services. And so I was asking some. I said, well, what about, bootstrapping to being a pilot? And they go, well, you could in any other service but the Air Force. I said, but the Air Force is who flies.
they got the planes. That's what they do.
It was because of the difference in the mission then, right? With Navy, Marines, Army, it was more, it wasn't like a combat mission for them.
It was a support mission.
Smaller. Yes. Yeah. So I go, oh, okay. So I actually should have gone in another service. But anyway, turns out I found out being in a flight simulator, I get very airsick. So I wouldn't have been
so ironic.
Well, you never know until you get in that whirly game whether you're going to blow chunks or not. So.
Yeah. And also, I know that when they were specifically talking about letting women try to become, basically every honor in the armed forces had to be fight for, like being a Green Beret or going to Army Ranger school. And it was, it was always that often they would look and the women were much calmer and much more calculating when making decisions. And I would argue that young girls are given responsibility much sooner than young boys. And so we're taught to be responsible. They say that, oh, women mature earlier than men. I think that's actually a patriarchal way to look at it.
Expectation.
Because men want to get with younger women. What it really is that women have to be self-sufficient much younger and have to take on responsibility much younger, especially if there are multiple siblings. Oftentimes they're essentially babysitters by age 11. And they're caregivers. So yeah. So I think that is a lot of why then you have these high pressure situation. A lot of times women are naturally more capable at that. So actually they don't need as much mental training as a lot of men do. Right. So, they found that out, especially with those. I remember it was a couple of years ago that 2 women graduated from Army Ranger School and they had the highest marks in mental capability than compared to their male colleagues. And so I think that, it's so common for these institutions to just assume women can't do it, but they haven't even seen if we could in the first place. So how do they know? And it's actually like the misogynistic thing is fear of a woman taking your job because we work twice as hard and get paid twice as less. So that's definitely a lot of that going on there is the reason they wanted to be the cockpit is because they didn't want women to have this very, later now, unfortunately, pilots are not paid enough. But in the 50s and 60s, you could make a lot of money being a pilot.
Men can't get by with just being mediocre anymore. Right. Yeah. They used to. Look at the 50s. I mean, any bozo could get a really good job with a college degree. And so, because it was so, closed off to others.
It's almost like if women and people of color aren't competing, there are plenty of jobs for white men. How weird.
Yeah, how that works.
Also, I love Aaron's. Also, women don't get the man flu.
True that. Yeah, and the civil news fine.
I just love that. It's so true. I have an ex that just to cough anything, he was down for days, and I'm just like, dude. You have work to do. Stop it.
It's weird. But men are like extremes. They're like that, or they just fall over dead one day.
Yeah, and just never go to the doctor, pull out their own teeth, and
stitch up everything. And
oh, you need to be a happy medium in there, right?
It's just indigestion. It was the hot dog,
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with me. I'm bulletproof.
That's it. Have been for years. What if I'm 70?
I also wanted to mention Nessie and I are wearing red today because it is it is an awareness day for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Native women are, like all women of color, more likely to be victims of violent crime. So if you want to find out more, I put a link in the description to an article, which is it's a particularly a publication run by Native women. So please check that out. They have some events that you could have gone to today. Probably you missed it, but they probably have it recorded, so you can watch all those events. And today we remember all of the women and girls, and we advocate for the future of Native women and girls to be safer. Because as we always say, always emphasize here over at BTP, women are survivors and victims, and it is not about walking home in pairs or watching what you wear. It is about policing men's abuses. They are the perpetrator. If someone is murdered, you don't say, well, they shouldn't have been, they should have been faster getting into their apartment or they wouldn't have got murdered. We don't victim blame with murder. We don't victim blame with rape. So that's my PSA.
Like when they said she was wearing that short skirt, back when they can't really do that now so much, but why, like a burglar, like walking along and he sees this diamond ring in the window and he just steals it and says, well, they just had it there. Just asking.
That jewelry store was just asking for. Yeah.
I mean, it had all its wares out.
Yeah. I just
out on display.
Got it.
For anyone to just come by and steal.
Yeah.
Yeah, or someone breaks into your house, well, you didn't leave lights on to ward away, or you didn't have a security system outside your house. Right. I mean, it's
yeah, that's the only crime that question.
Well, you shouldn't have been drinking before you went to bed, or you could have woken up and run the intruder out.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I love how there's this culture of encouraging women to drink more so that their inhibitions will be lowered, and then they are slut shamed afterwards. And then even the term walk of shame, I've stopped using that because that's bullshit. The morning after when she's walking down the street holding her heels and everyone's jeering at her, it's just, no.
Yeah. One shoe, trying to find a cab. Don't do it. But yeah, the channel, we like to, inform and promote, these causes and organizations. So if, we see one, we find one that we would just want to share with everyone in case you're unaware of such things. I'm learning new things every day. I wake up like a baby duck and I learn something new every day.
So, I just see you waddling around, a little baby duck.
I'm just a little baby duck. I'm going to be a baby duck until, the end. But I think it's important. It's important that we all learn something new every day.
Exactly. I don't understand the hesitancy, especially as people get older. Like I said, I've even now evolved how I felt about the military board about sexual assault. When I was just, you can ask Amy, I was against that till really just a few months ago till I really got to thinking about it.
That was one of the few things that we disagreed on. Yeah, actually, I remember having some debates about that with you.
Yeah,
over the years. So
and so it's that's kind of how the patriarchy just slips in, right? You kind of, it's so infused you just don't even realize sometimes it's part of it.
That's actually, I think, what the patriarchy does best is to normalize something and make it everyone else's fault, but straight white men.
Right.
And of course, I also want to emphasize that, the patriarchy also then really, really harms queer people. So that even if you are a white man, you're still being harmed because you don't, if you're gay, because, you're not the right type of man.
Right.
And, there are also men who are not necessarily into we did an episode on, Nessie and I did an episode on toxic masculinity. There might be men who don't, who are more into long-term dating. They're serial monogamists. They don't want a one-night stand, and they're seen as, they would call them pussies, which once again is a very coded anti-woman language as well. Yeah, exactly. Like our good friend Cassie is saying, men who aren't manly then are harmed.
Yes.
And men who are considered manly enough are constantly worried about falling from their pedestal of being the right.
Right. And if you think about the characteristics that you are manly, you're describing an ass.
Yeah.
Really, you know what I mean? Because there's those to care about anybody, focus on this, all of those aggressive things.
Yeah, you're a loner, you're tough, you're gritty, you don't need anybody to.
Right. And for kind of a while, the women's movement, at least how some of us may have been interpreting it, we kind of thought we had to join that to get accepted. It was about us getting accepted.
Which is why all the women's suits in the 80s had shoulder pads on them. You wanted to look more.
Well, and I can remember
even the 70s, the women who were entering into the workplace at that time and were experiencing, all of the sexual harassment, they were expected to you're either going to get picked on with that, or you're expected to just give it back just the way they are and
that's
say,
right, be a man.
So and so with your tiny penis,
exactly.
And I saw Joe, doing this or that, or
grab your crotch.
One of the guys crotch grabbing.
Right, stood on the sidewalk. Yeah, all of that. I did that for years, thinking, every other sentence had fuck in it. I could show them I could do this too, And
I mean, it still does kind of.
I don't think it wasn't just me, because I do remember, I'm not going to blame this on Ms., because I also had Cosmopolitan magazine. I don't even know if it's still in print.
I think Cosmo.
It does a little different a little different tact with it. And now looking back on it, I'm not so sure it was always good, because I remember one bit of advice it gave career women at the time is you got to be just like men, and if to be accepted, don't look, if you got children, don't have a picture of them on your desk, because they're going to say, well, she can't be promoted because, she's too.
She got the kids.
Yeah. And that's awful, right?
Or the fact that you're thinking about having a family. Well,
yeah,
move to the back of the line, sister.
Women can't be good managers, right? Because they're going to be too consumed with their household thing. And what's really weird is when I finally worked myself up to being a program manager and I had all men working for me, I think having been a mother made me a much better manager of my project and the people, because they were like my children. And I remember some of the ones, and those guys would do anything for me. And I was just like, so, that made me a much better manager, because it was a human thing, because I hate to just say female, because it should be human. It shouldn't be just females. It should be everybody,
Well, and for you had waited so long to have me too. So, you were very proud.
Yeah.
So to not have pictures,
Yeah.
And your a desk, you spend a lot of time there. You'd want it to be comfortable and make it your space your own.
Yeah. By that time, this was like in my 20s. I read that. Oh yeah.
I loved watching some of the episodes from that 70s show. I know it's it's so funny and so eye rolling, but it does reflect a lot of the sentiments of the time. And you have Donna, who's this ultra feminist young woman who's just so imposing, and Eric, and they're each dreaming of their future life together. And of course, Eric has his traditional man puts the suit on and goes to work and takes care of things. And then Donna, she's the career woman, and Eric is at just home taking care of the babies, and which she will pet and adore. It's just these things are just, I just think it's just so hilarious and yet very typical of the things that were being taught and in at the time. And we would read about them in the magazines or what have you, like I'm career woman, I'm putting on the suit and going into the workforce, and I'm going to hang out with the dudes and go drink at the bar afterwards, and I'll think about maybe having kids later, never, maybe never.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I also, another TV woman is Robin from How I Met Your Mother, who from episode 1 was saying she didn't want to have kids and she wanted to be, a respected journalist. And so you kind of see that her throughout 9 seasons sticking to that. I've always never liked in TV or movies where they have a woman who says she doesn't want kids, and then by the end of it, she changes her mind and she's in a heteronormative family. Yeah. It is. I'm not saying you have to stick to one thing when you're 20, right? But speaking as someone who will not change their mind, you either know or you don't. So I hear a lot of women say maybe, and those women are maybe. But women that say not at all have always been not at all. So if there's a chance they're going to change their mind, they will tell you maybe. And the most degrading thing a man can tell to me is you could change your mind because you don't fucking know me. Only I am in my head. No one else.
At least in Oklahoma, you can't, if you've never had a child, you can't get your tubes tied until you're age 35.
35. Yep, my 35th birthday. I'm going in with my husband's permission, 2 psychologists and a doctor saying I can do it, and that's going to be my birthday present to myself.
You have to do all that? I thought you just had to be 35.
Nope, you got to be 35. If you're married, your husband needs to give permission, and you need 2 psychologists, or it's either 2 doctors and a psychologist or 2 psychologists and a doctor, all saying that you are mentally able to make this decision.
Isn't that, though, state by state law?
It is state by state, but I know definitely there are states where that is the case. So and probably
North Carolina is very similar.
It's like that, yeah.
The way I see it, unless a woman can do it at 35, no questions asked in every state, then it's wrong. And I don't even think 35 should be it. Really, men can do it at 18. Men can get snipped, and I know that they can get it reversed, but I don't think that should be the main reason that it's seen as different.
Yeah, the only reason that I was allowed at age 30 was because I had 2 children. Well, I was having one at the time, but I was like, who wants to have a second surgery if you got the door open? But still, my husband had to sign, and I was like, that's just gritting my teeth. I'm like, sign the damn papers,
And this is even if the man has children from a previous marriage and doesn't want anymore. Right?
Yeah.
And he does have the thing that they say, oh, well, a man might want children. Well, he has children already.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, some things haven't changed then, huh? Yeah.
Yep.
That's part of it. Birth control. Gotta keep us away from having control over our bodies, too.
Now, of course, my experience was as a white woman, and I do know that women of color are urged quite often to have that procedure done earlier and earlier.
I bet.
And there are examples of forced sterilization of women of color as well, which is not good at all.
Another big old drink, y'all.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, also we owe a lot of modern gynecology also to experiments on slaves, female slaves at the time too.
Well, not just slaves, into the 1920s too.
Yeah.
20s, 30s, 40s.
That's true. Even the 40s. Yeah.
It's
and that's just like, either way is bad, right? It's just like still not having control over your bodies. I kind of just always wondered why the extreme anti-choice people, who want to make it so illegal and have the government say that abortion's illegal, wouldn't they think that if the government is then established as being able to be involved in your life like that, then at some point they can say, force you to have an abortion? Because now it's up to the state, right? You're saying it's the state interest, whether you have an abortion or not have an abortion. So it just seems like a real dangerous move, even for their cause. They're not thinking through, what
They're not
it
thinking
could
through their own
mean.
bullshit.
Yeah.
And it also comes from white supremacy, because it tends to be middle class white women who can't afford to take off work and afford the procedure, afford to travel if they're in a certain part of a state where they have to go to the complete other side of the state in order to get a procedure. So it's also these conservative white men, heterosexual men that are obsessed with the white birth rate going down, because in America, that's the only birth rate that's going down. So it seems to be very peculiar that they're only worried about that.
Well, we're coming up on a non-white majority.
Yeah.
When is it supposed to happen? It's around the corner, and that's what's really terrifying.
And it's happening quicker than they thought. I remember they were originally saying 2040 or 2030, and it's already getting there. Because we just got the census in, and it's already like just razor thin, the difference.
And that's just for people that filled out the census, y'all.
Yes.
Yeah,
there were a lot of undocumented people that didn't fill out the census because Trump was making them afraid that they would be targeted by ICE. So I think we've already reached that point, frankly.
I can pretty much assure you. Well, guys, we're coming up on the mid-roll. You want to go ahead and let's just take a little break. And,
sounds great.
Thank some of these lovely people who are here with us in the chat today, who took time out of their busy schedules to just come and hang out with us. I saw, of course, John piped in earlier, our brother in podcasting.
Yes, our podcast sibling.
Your podcast sibling. From Florida, Gail.
Yes, that's the Florida guy.
I want to say even Steven popped in to say hi.
Yeah, he's at work. He just got his second shot, so he's laid up. So Steven, hope you feel better soon. Trust me, it really only lasts like a day and a half. You're gonna be fine. Get a good night's sleep. We're thinking about you, buddy. And then of course we have AK, my sister from another mister. Good to see you, girl.
We got Lady Leaf, Danny McKay, Kate Bertinsky. We've got Lady Sharp, my sister,
and our fellow Okie, Gail.
Yep.
Cool.
Shar is actually only about an hour or so away from you, Mom.
Yep. She's tuning in to say hi today. We've got Belle Downs. Hi, glad you could make it.
Yes, hello.
I believe they're from Australia.
Wow.
Erin M.
Nice.
That's our
Erin. Erin and I have a date this Saturday. I'm excited for that. So
I hate you,
Erin.
I hate you.
We've got Isabel Harper and our good friend Kate over there repping the Great White North.
Reflective Rambling, our community artist. Sanrixian also popped in the chat to say hi. Hi, Sanri. She's probably at work. Just pop it in to say hi. Let's see. Do we have anyone else? Did I miss anybody? If I missed anybody, I'm sorry because I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, J-Dubs, you're gonna be feeling like Steven in a couple hours. We're here for you, buddy.
Yeah.
It's good, guys. Yeah, the second shot sucks, but get it anyway. Don't be half-vaxxed, because that's half-assed.
It is.
Freedom. That's how you get freedom.
Yes. Yep. You want to go back to normal, you got to get stuck twice.
Herd up, y'all. Herd up. Protect your fellow humans and get vaccinated, people. I work, as most of you guys know, I work in the healthcare industry. I work on the front lines. I see the effects of COVID-19 on its victims, their families, their extended families. It's terrible. And even your Belle Downs is in Perth, 12 hours into the future. What?
Whoa!
Oh my gosh!
Tell us what it's like,
Belle. Glad to have you here for a live stream. Early for you. Oh my gosh. Yes, please get yourself vaccinated. Save a life. It may be your own. It may be someone you love. Help get the numbers up in a positive way.
It's the only way out.
And be grateful that we live in a country where we have an overabundance of vaccination shots. Our hearts go out to everyone in India right now. There's just a huge humanitarian crisis going on over there.
Yes, it's terrible. It's terrible. Support. If we can, maybe we should find a link maybe to.
So if every American would hurry up, and adult who can get vaccinated gets vaccinated, then whatever we have left over, hopefully we can send to the international community. So, but they're not going to do it until enough Americans are vaccinated. So go do your part.
Do your part. Do your part for
humanity. Patriotic.
Exactly.
Be part of that exceptionalism.
That's right.
Just like the 1918 flu pandemic, it was patriotic to stay indoors. Now you don't have to anymore. You can go out and get fully vaccinated.
Hey,
I ate inside a restaurant 2 days ago, and it was glorious. You can be me.
It's marvelous.
Eating time. Continue. Hand washing. Wear your mask. Wash your masks, people. They're nasty things. Wash your masks. Wash your mask. Wash your hands. Don't be a nasty bitch. So
there you go. Very good advice.
And speaking as a respiratory therapist, we saw very little flu this last winter season.
Yeah.
Thank you for everyone who was responsible enough. Mask wearing stops the spread of not just COVID-19. It stops other things. We've seen a significant downsize in the amount of people asthmatics who are suffering with asthmatic attacks from the pollen and the other irritants in the air. I'm hoping one day that this will just be the norm for all times, because it doesn't have to be plague. It can be other things. So wear a mask, wash your hands, don't be a nasty bitch, put it on a t-shirt. Okay. And hey, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, give maybe a little thumbs up.
All the YouTube things, subscribe,
put a comment in. Tell us what a great job we're doing, or if we're not, tell us what a crappy job we're doing.
Or be like that guy and tell us that women are naturally bad because of evolution. That was a fun comment.
That was a wonderful conversation.
The YouTube algorithm just likes interaction. So if you thumbs down, it actually positively affects us because you've interacted with the video. So interact with it. And Nessie deserves your sub. Seriously, guys. She works so hard in real life and to give you beautiful content. So please give Nessie a sub. You will not regret it. And hit that sweet notification bell so you know when she's going live, because it's usually on a Wednesday, but can be irregular. So got to keep up with it. And if you follow us on Twitter, trust me, you will know if there's BTP happening. I plug the crap out of it. So
she really does. She's like the greatest promoter. And if anybody has any comments or suggestions about content that you would like to see, this channel is just as much about you guys as it is about us. We'll be happy to dig into any topic that you guys may be interested in. So you can leave that in the comments. You can hit either of us up on Twitter. You can hit the official channel up on Twitter. All the things. So yeah, we're open and glad to have you all here today. So
great
for the conversation. Well, Miss Gail, so you went into academia after your stint in the military. What?
It was, it was almost like academia in the sense I worked in training for the FAA. So
I want to know about the monkeys.
Oh, well, yes.
Oh my God, I totally forgot. I told you guys about that.
Okay, so
Amy and I have a very deep love for monkeys. So
I do. I love monkeys.
We are a pro monkey channel, pro simian channel here with the Unspun Yarn. So
now you would be corrected by this crowd. They're not monkeys because they don't have tails. They're apes.
I do know that. I do know that fact.
They mostly worked with the chimps, right, Mom?
Yes, chimps mainly. Yes. Which, apes or chimps. But yes, that was a big program in the 70s. Speaking of the 70s again, it was they actually talked about it in a chapter of some guy who wrote a book just about the 70s. And then the CHIP program, which is what they called it here, then they did a HBO special about it. So my ex-husband was
I think it's called Project NIM is what it was.
Project NIM was the
like the rats.
Well, it was
Or the mice?
NIM because it was named after one of the chimps, Nimsky. Okay.
Aww.
And they called him NIM. Okay. This became a really weird thing because the project, the PhD professor over who came here, Thompson was here, and then the doctor who brought the big chimp, Washoe, was the one who was seen as the, champion. They were going to teach her sign language, and because she was seen as being pretty bright, and then at some point they would breed her, and then the thought was, the experiment was, she would teach the baby sign language, which never happened, and the program went south. And the reason why Nimsky was named that is they were all very pissed off at Noam Chomsky.
Noam Chomsky.
Noam Chomsky, who had
it's very, he's big in psychological theory.
Yeah.
And linguistics.
Linguist, right.
Yeah.
And so he made the comment that they were really mimicking sign language. They knew
not fully understanding that. Yeah.
And
it was like, if I do that thing, they give me a treat, so I do that thing, but they don't understand that thing means please give me a treat, kind of like that, right?
Like, your dog does certain things for a treat, and it was such a narcissistic program if you look back on it, because it was seen as like, well, then they'll just give up their way of communication, and this will be so great. And they'll just all take up sign language. And you look back on it and you go, that's really weird now.
It was really more of a study in human ego and hotness than anything, actually. That's actually what I learned from what you've told me, and from what I've learned about the chimp program. Is that it really said a lot more about the researchers than it did
very
about the
invested.
chimps.
They were very invested. And then when I heard on a special on species confusion, was a special they had on NPR about, and I had known her, one of the researchers here had, once the program folded, her job was to take and reinstitute one of the chimps into Africa. And anyway, she successfully did that, but unfortunately, and it took like several visits, and she had to slowly get it to get Lucy, was the name of the chimp, to go join other chimps. She didn't want to. She wanted to stay with Janice, was the name of the lady researcher. And so finally, she finally got her to, and then Janice went back a year later and was able to find her, and Washoe recognized, or Lucy recognized her, and ran up to her because Janice, when she left, had given her a mirror, and she showed her the mirror, letting her know, I remember you doing that. And so the next year she came back, though she was killed by poachers, because she trusted humans. She didn't. Yeah.
And
I say that for both, really, because they took these chimps, did it, and then where are they going to go after this? And Amy's right. It was kind of more of a research in human ego than anything else.
I think I saw recently that there's a case in the New York's courts right now about an elephant that's been in captivity in the Bronx Zoo for upwards of 40 years.
Yeah.
They're trying to win a case for her bodily autonomy, have the right for her to be freed from this captivity. So that case, is going forward. So it's good that these things are at least finally being recognized.
Yeah.
We need to transition to wildlife refuges. I know that people's interest in animals is not going to go away, but we can do wildlife reservations where you see them in their natural habitat, much wider open spaces, rather than them being caged and put in one spot for you to come and look at. Because they're going to automatically be depressed. You're not actually going to be seeing animals how they're going to actually interact and create a community. That's really not what's, a lot. If anyone's seen Tiger King on Netflix, that was really popular right when quarantine started, right? That they are not meant to be in cages. And so because of that, there are a lot of wildlife refuges that are saying, okay, we know we can't put them back in the wild, but we can at least give them, at least loosen the reins a little bit, and give them a better life.
Try to give them a better life, certainly a better environment. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, we're making the chat all sad. We're sorry. These are important
issues. We have hope. It's a good thing that this is going forward. It exists.
Moving in the right direction.
And we finally have a case that could change some of this.
Yes. So, and one thing that I really advocate against is private ownership of exotic animals. You do not, just because it's America and capitalism, you can afford to buy a tiger to put in your backyard does not mean you should.
If you're going to do that, use your wealth like Cher. She
sponsor a tiger.
Sponsors refuge,
she paid to have it moved and everything. And so, I mean, it costs, so if you're wealthy, instead of having animals, why don't you, make their life better?
Make their life better.
But modern zoos are based off of menageries, which were essentially like moving zoos, like circuses, exactly. Like, that's the same thing with people who had disabilities. They, the bearded lady, these kinds of things, like these curiosities, like that has a very disgusting history, and modern zoos are based off of that. So unfortunately, I know kids love going to the zoo, and it's great to get them out and they have fun for the day, but there is a real cost to these kinds of
they are getting better though, as far as that goes.
Take your kids to Yellowstone. Maybe that would be a better choice.
Really see them out. Exactly.
So thanks for the monkey talk, for the ape talk. Thanks for the ape talk. That was a cool little segue there. But life in academia, how did that compare with life in the military as far as the sexism and the barriers?
I think at the time, in some ways, both wasn't really in the military long enough. I didn't whatever harassment. It was not so much directed at me. I don't think I was in long enough. I probably wasn't threatening enough, but I did see it more, after I was in college and then working, for the FAA. I would say it was at the time actually better for the government, because they at least started having programs about sexual harassment, and pretty early on. I'd say early 80s at least. It doesn't mean they were always followed or anything, but they did start an awareness and a route up, and it was seen as harassment, as discrimination, like any other discrimination, Whereas in academia, I think you're kind of on your own. And then for a long time, I don't know, I never were a faculty member or anything. Like, they kind of started addressing it even later.
Yeah, because I think Title IX is a more recent thing, because every time, I'm now at my third university, because I did bachelor's, master's, now I'm working on my PhD, during the orientation, you learn about your Title IX rights, and a part of those rights are you should get the same education as your male colleagues, and because of that, you should report any sexual assault, right? But I think Title IX is from the early 2000s, late 90s. That it certainly was not in when you were in university, Mom.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
And you probably even saw students marrying their professors. Even it was quite normalized.
It was. It was. In fact, that would have been seen as. Of course, I was married most of the time I was in undergrad, but it was kind of seen as that would be a catch.
You know, a guy with a good tenured professor, you got a good job.
Yeah, right. It wouldn't be even seen then as that would be inappropriate for him to be doing that. You know, it was being blinded by the patriarchy.
Yeah, and when you're talking about like fellow academians, the all important fight for tenure.
That's got to be rough. Yes.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, and there's definitely junior professors who are, CU Boulder. I'm gonna call it out. Professor Paul Kroll. He's retired now, so I'm coming for you, Kroll. In '96, he was dating a junior professor in the same department, and all of her teaching evaluations when they were together, she's the best teacher ever. You should promote her. She breaks up with him. Every teaching evaluation after that, she needs improvement. She's wrong about this, wrong about that. She had to leave the university, and she left academia altogether. And he stayed in. And you know what they did? They removed him they made it so that you couldn't be department chair ever again.
Yeah.
He's still retired, full benefits, still is the most well-known professor of Tang Dynasty studies, which I know that doesn't mean anything to you guys, but he's big. He literally wrote a dictionary of many.
I was going to say, he's got a book deal somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have to use his dictionary because it is the foremost dictionary for medieval Chinese language. And so, Paul Kroll, his life hardly changed, and her life changed forever. And he has a couple of bad articles written about him in the 90s that you can look up, and that's the only thing. None of my colleagues knew about it. I had a student who was my senior by a couple of years. She told me about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known to even Google Paul Kroll's sexual harassment.
And the woman always has to be the one to leave, right?
Absolutely. And it was that if she would have won the fight, would she have really been able to stay? No.
No.
Because everyone would have thought she was making the department look bad.
I dated one of the bosses when I was 25, and I had to leave. Yeah. Yes. When I broke up. Yeah. It wasn't going to go well. So, yeah. Not a good idea.
Yeah. And and this is not just to say, of course, that it is men. There's a famous case in gender studies, a very famous feminist scholar out of I believe the Toronto area, and she was sexually harassing a male student. So this is not to say that it's exclusively men, but they are taught that women are theirs to partake in much more than women are taught. The other way around.
Yeah.
So, we're taught to be kind of meek and let men make the moves and all of that. And once again, it's all heteronormative. So if you're gay or bi, it's, doesn't quite fit.
Very true. Very true.
Well, looking for change, ladies, looking for change.
Yeah. And I think also everything post 2017, post Me Too, I watch a lot of movies and such that are just even 2015 or 2014. It's like that could not have been made today.
And that's a good sign. That shows you how fast things can change, and where just movies that far along, you go, really? That's not even funny or whatever, And when you're in the moment too, I mean, I'm sure people during the People's Freedom March in the mid-'60s, they didn't know.
Every moment.
Yeah, you just don't know when it's happening. You can only look back on it.
Yeah. You don't know that you're in the moment until you're through it, huh?
Until you're through it, really.
And then you can see all the ramifications and changes and things that were made. So, don't be afraid to stand up.
Yeah.
And, the only one people really surprised by the Me Too movement were men who are not abusers, but the men who are abusers, and every woman in the nation knew exactly what Me Too was about.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, me too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. So many people that it's the exception. If a lot of people are honest with themselves, it's the exception to the Me Too that's the case, as opposed to it not being the case. Because so many people that I know of have these stories that they tell that that they were involved in one episode or another, to varying degrees, of course.
Yes.
And everyone's experience, your mileage may vary, but it's there. It's prevalent in every genre, every walk of life, every occupation that you find yourself in. Somebody somewheres is like
trying
to put the pressure on you.
And there are spaces that are specifically created to make this possible, such as going to a club or frat parties. It's literally set up. The music is too loud, so you don't talk. And it's also because it's too loud, you can be like, hey, you want to go somewhere so we can talk?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have that.
Closer. Yes.
And I have never been in a club where first of all, where I didn't get felt up, and even less than 3 times. It's always at least 3 times my ass will get grabbed, or someone will just start dancing with me. Didn't ask, just started feeling up. So, or like one time I was just waiting in the line for a bathroom, and dude just like threw himself on me and was touching my boobs. Like there are these spaces that are specifically created by men to make it okay. Yes. And then whenever you say, I got my ass grabbed at the club, they're like, well, of course it's the club.
It's the club.
Just disregards my experience and every woman's experience,
just saying the phrase, they were out clubbing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
There you go. Yes.
There you go. It has all that weight behind it. So
yeah.
And so much of our language too, like we're gonna go pick up chicks. It sounds like we're just an object that you're just like, there you go, and you put in your car and you drive off. Like there's no consent, there's no other person.
And then return.
Yeah, scan. Oh, this one's good. Use it for the night and return it back. You know, just very objectification is a huge part of how the patriarchy makes women feel like they are sexual objects, and that things like getting catcalled. Oh, you should actually be,
flattered.
Feel flattered that you got catcalled, right?
Right.
It's like that's absolutely correct, big sweaty guy doing your thing. I'm out here looking this just for your visual enjoyment.
And last time I got catcalled, I had a hoodie and sweats on, so doesn't matter how you dress either.
Ooh.
No, just because they can.
Just putting it all out there, Amy. Just putting it all out.
I know. I had my size extra large, learned hands. Shout out to Clint and Mary over at the Learned Hands podcast. So I was repping my fandom merch.
Oh, Aaron. Boo.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to gain weight to not get catcalled. But that is true. I'm losing weight for my wedding right now. But about 10 pounds ago, no guy didn't even look at me. Guys didn't even look at me. So
like there's some kind of
there's like a cutoff of unattractive now. Yeah, it's really sad the basicness of it all. Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy being comfortably plump. I'm like, hey, I'm just me, happy in my own skin.
That's right.
I don't care. I'm happy. I wear my clothes comfortable for me. If they make me feel good about myself, I wear them. And if that happens to be a hoodie and some sweats, and I'm feeling pretty great about myself, I don't care.
There you go.
I'm not on display for anyone's pleasure but my own.
Yeah.
I'm.
Who's to say what looks great, right?
Hey, Sean, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing all
right.
Sean.
Glad you can make it. Yeah.
Ed.
Oh, his real name's Sean.
His real name is Sean. His
it's
YouTube
a Game of
name
Thrones reference. Ed
Oh
Tollett.
gosh.
Ridiculous Ed Tollett.
Trust me, if you don't understand it, Mom, in this community, it's probably a Game of Thrones reference.
I see. Okay.
No, but Sean's he's a great supporter of all of our channels.
Cool.
And alpha patron of the Here Be Dragons YouTube channel, where
yes, he
a lot of it started. So
he is our fearless Lord Commander of the Patreon.
All right.
Big supporter of my channel too. Yep. Who has a wonderful cat named George, who just recently had a birthday.
Oh, that's
happy
so
birthday
cute.
again, George. Love him and hug him and kiss him and call him George.
And then give him exactly 2.5 belly rubs before it attacks you.
But not 3.
But not 3, not 2, 2.5. You know how cats are.
4 to attach.
4 is right out.
4, they don't talk to you for 3 days.
That's very different from dogs. For sure.
Mom, actually, I had a question for you. Do you remember when it was that you started to identify as a feminist, and if there was some kind of event or something that made that happen?
Yeah, what was the moment for you, or was it something you mentioned? The was it Elle Magazine or
Ms. Magazine?
Ms. Magazine.
Well, like I was saying, it started out as really wanting to have a different job than what women had. First, a preacher, then a pilot. Everyone was saying no. I understand that, and the coming along for that, and Ms. So I would say, really, there were pieces, a lot. Like I said, never feeling like what I wanted to fit in is what women were supposed to do. None of it seemed, anything. There was
the traditional pathways just did not appeal to you.
Yeah, they were teachers, but it was all teaching little kids. I wanted to do something bigger than that, or whatever. And there was that, and then Gloria and really did think in Ms. Magazine and the whole ERA movement made a real movement. Like I said, coming up with the concept of Ms. Never using Miss or Mrs. and then reading and then not changing my name when Amy's dad and I got married, and because I had read, it was like, why should they change their name? Because it's not like they're being adopted. They're getting married, and if you think about it, if one person changes their name to that other person, it's already meant setting up an inequality in a way.
I think for me, I kind of had a similar thought process, Gail. I came along a little bit later than you. I was growing up in the 70s, and there was like a brighter cult. It was like, thank you for making the 70s better for us that came behind. Opened up possibilities that we didn't have. And doing some we had fabulous role models. We had some great, books and film to look up to. I think I was probably maybe about, I don't know, 10, who knows, with summer reading. I read a book by a woman called Susan Brown Miller, and it was called Against Our Will. And it had to do with rape culture. Against Our Will, Men, Women, and Rape. And a 10-year-old reading this book. Well, my mother wasn't looking at what I was reading, thank goodness. But because she probably wouldn't have liked it very much. But
might not have approved of that, yeah.
May not have approved of that, but it was on the bookshelf, so I figured I'd read it. And I just like totally opened my eyes about so many things, rape culture, and being a child of abuse, finding out that, hey, it wasn't about me. It was never about me. And it's societal, and it's just ingrained in culture, and the way that men are taught, and the way that, men believe things. It really changed my thought processes, and it was very profound to me. So yeah, I think the book was written in like 75 or something, but I've probably read it in like 80, what have you. But yeah, it was really, life changing for me.
Yeah.
And started my thoughts on, how am I, what am I going to be when I grow up? I started, I always wanted to, um, have a career, maybe I'll be in a relationship, maybe I won't, we'll see. But I always wanted to be a career person. I had a great inspiration in my mother as well. And maybe one day Amy and I will do a stream about ableism, because my mother had to contend with ableism her entire life, but she was a wonderful role model for me to believe. If I believe and work hard and do all the things, of course, I have an opportunity. That's all any of us have. It's all any of us want, is just an opportunity to, be a happy human being. So she would always encourage me and supported me in my endeavors. So that's, just part of being a great feminist mom, is not limiting your kids' ideas about what they want to do and be, and supporting them and loving them. That's like the groundwork of any good parent, and that's all you want, for your kids. I say, a lot. I'm sorry.
But my mom does know.
Gail, that's all one wants for their children, is for them to be happy and happy. You just want them to be happy in whatever they do.
Because everything else will fall into place if they're happy.
Yeah, exactly. Follow your path.
One thing that kind of came late to me with feminism, I was pretty much just focused on, what's been done to we females in the home. And what came late to me was how trapped men are, and how really in some ways they're more trapped than we are, because we've at least been able to now, shift around in our role pretty much. Maybe people don't like it, but, we can shift them, and they really can't, or just now,
it's much more difficult.
Yes.
What if a man wants to order a nice cocktail, a pina colada, rather than a beer? He feels like that's a girly drink, at the bar. You can't be seen in public drinking that.
Even or something as simple.
Yeah, or show emotion, which is why toxic masculinity inherently has microaggressions, because they're building up all of, and why aggressiveness is associated with it. It's because you're building up all of this sadness, and it turns into anger.
Right. There's no vent to let it out. And, really men are taught not to communicate. That's kind of for sissies,
Yeah.
And that really is, also, you hold things in with that and causes microaggressions because you just don't know how to articulate things.
Like J-Dub says, I feel and feel just as much as women do. It's just that we are given the resources and the space.
The permission.
Be okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Given the permission.
Yeah.
And Mom, something that I find interesting too is we're going to do a whole episode on this, Nessie, which I'm really excited for, is the beauty industry. One real test of your feminism is when I didn't shave my legs for 5 years.
That was. Yes, it was. And like I said, well, then I couldn't give you a reason why you shouldn't. And then it was cultural. And I had to just get over it.
Yeah.
Because that was different for me. And I had to say, well, hey, this is what it's about, right? It's about feminism is about choosing what you want, not have society to define it for you.
Yeah. And bless Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Bless Mr. Rogers. And generate the
He's
children.
a great male role model.
Definitely. We need more Mr. Rogers, for sure.
Yes, and his idea of being neighbor and neighborly, it completely changed generations of children, particularly my generation.
Yeah.
As well. And multiple generations. Yeah.
You know, I thank you, PBS, for giving us Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and the Electric Company. Everything that I needed to learn in life, I learned early on PBS.
PBS was a magnificent thing to come along for America. I tell you, it really was. It introduced me, just being in rural Oklahoma growing up. Masterpiece Theater was just amazing, you know, and you know, and it was just public TV and public radio was just a couple of years old by then. It only came in with the Johnson administration. And of course, every year, Republicans want to cut them off because, you know.
Because we can't have free.
Yeah, can't have free.
And especially can't have educational that's teaching people, you know, about their about being a civil servant and these good, you know,
good people, how to be good humans.
Yeah, civics education is the one thing that certainly conservatives do not like.
Things and say, oh, I might have to use some critical thinking skills on this. Maybe it's not so good.
Yeah, but and fortunately for even in the deep rural areas like I was raised in, that's one of the few channels that you could receive was your public access television. Thank you for that. We could watch it, you know, UHF, wherever it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Right in, even out here in the sticks, we could get it on the old antenna. If you put the tin foil around the little roundy one and twisted the antenna just right.
There you go. And then hold your mouth just right, and you got a great signal. No.
Yeah, just hold it. Okay, now stand right there. Don't move.
Yeah.
My brother and I would occasionally take turns. Usually I made him. But other than I'm kidding. I didn't make him do that all the time. So.
Just when it was the TV wasn't working.
Yeah, just occasionally.
Yeah.
Because I could do that. Yeah, John had a quick. Did you put that one up there about which party is? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
interesting how that's always one of them, not the other. Actually, you know, Nessie, you mentioned earlier about how you had read something and you had mentioned, oh, you know, my mom must have not known that I was reading that. And actually, one of the things I loved most, well, I love everything about my mom. One of the things I loved most is that she didn't police the content that I was consuming. And first off, it's because she didn't know how to do parental controls because it had to do with technology. So she wasn't going to go in there like on the TV or on the computer and like control it. But second of all, I think mom really trusted me to pick, to kind of know when I am, you know, that I can handle something. And I think I was in 6th grade, maybe 7th, and I was a library assistant. So we would reshelve the books and help people find books. Yeah, I know that helped my love of reading. And I ended up reading a book that talked about that one of the characters, the main character was like a 15-year-old boy who got his girlfriend pregnant in school. And I had shown it to my friend, and she was raised very conservative. And she said, there's no way, like my mom checks every book I'm reading. She checks every, you know, DVD I get from Blockbuster. You know, whereas we covered Pan's Labyrinth on Cinematic Realms. I do over there with my podcast sibling J-Dubs. And we were talking about how I saw Pan's Labyrinth at 13, and J-Dubs like, or 12, and I was like, that's kind of young to be like, you know, and we were at Blockbuster, so mom rented that for me. She like, whatever, I put it in her hand, as long as it wasn't rated R, she would rent it for me. And so like I was watching scary movies and all sorts of stuff at 12, and like I'm weird, everyone's weird, but like I'm fine. You know, it didn't scar me. I think that the parents are so strict about it then that the kids are gonna extra rebel, you know?
I just didn't think, well, for one thing, the thing all that stuff about violence on television and causing violence. From being a psychology major, I knew that was all bullshit. It doesn't, cause them to be violent. They've done studies and all that. And I thought, if you saw sex, I didn't think you'd go out and have sex really either. So I don't know. I just really wasn't that concerned. And I think it was a lot to do with trust. You really hadn't done anything to make me not trust you, but you're right. I didn't monitor it very much, and I just didn't even feel the need to, so for good or for bad, we don't know.
I think it was my shame that I was hiding, my own personal shame.
Yeah.
That I was hiding. And,
yeah.
I didn't even, my mom didn't even come into question, but I didn't tell her that I was reading it. I did not tell her that I was reading it. It was of all places, it was at my grandmother's house, and I stayed with my grandmother, quite a bit. She was my second mom, actually my first mom, but I had great female role models, and the book belonged to my aunt that I mentioned earlier, who was in the Air Force. So she had a great book collection that she would keep at my grandmother's house whenever, she's traveling from station to station or what have you. Grandmother's house was her home base. So, she'd leave, part of the book collection there, kind of like a toehold. So I got the benefit of all of her, her Shakespeare collection, her, all of her Little Women books.
Yeah.
So she, and
that was a great career.
Literature thrown in for kicks.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it sounds like she had a great career.
Oh, she did. She traveled everywhere. She did exactly what she wanted to do.
And being an officer, in the military is way better. Yes.
Yeah, it helped to getting those bars.
Yeah.
When she got those captain's bars, it was really great.
Connor over there. He's not even a young millennial like me, and he's making the joke. Since we have a little over 20 minutes left too, Mom, if you don't mind, I was going to say anyone in the chat, if they have questions for Momma Blackfyre, you're more than welcome.
Sure.
While we're chatting here, we can, if you've got, any questions about her, if you want embarrassing baby stories.
I've got it right here. Blackmail material.
One thing, though, that I also really enjoyed, Mom, is that you raised me to be very politically active. I think I went to my first protest when I was 8 or 9, maybe with you, I think.
Because we were very against the Iraq war. And then, they called me when you were in elementary school because at recess you were having a protest. Or you were kind of like leading a protest against the war. And this is like the first year into the war. A lot of people hadn't turned off on it yet. And
you were what, 10?
I would have been 10. Yeah.
Yeah, you're 10 when it started around there. And probably just a year in, because like I said, we were against it from the very beginning. And anyway, so I get this call, and they said, yes, Amy is having protests on the playground against the war. And I said, oh, she is? And she goes, yeah, we wanted to let you know that. I go, oh, well, it's just like at recess. She goes, yeah. So she's not like disrupting class or anything. Oh, no, nothing like that. And then there was this very awkward pause. And then she said, we just, thought you should know. And I said, oh, okay, well, thank you very much. And hung up. And it's like, no way am I going to tell that kid not to do that. There's no way. Not after pumping her up when we're watching C-SPAN and all the protest rallies, So I wasn't going to be a hypocrite that way. So
did you have a conversation with Amy when she came home from school that day?
Never mentioned it.
Did she tell you all about her day?
I don't think she ever told me herself about the protests. Did you? I don't remember you telling me.
I don't remember it because the story that you've told me about the call, I think it was, I was like 20 the first time you told me about that. I always thought as I remember, you know, doing this little, we marched around the playground monkey bars a little bit, you know, peace, not war. You know, I like got some, I found, you know,
I think I made sure, like, saying, hell no, we won't go. Or,
yeah,
you know,
I wasn't doing obscenities or,
no.
yeah. But I do remember, though, when we went to that protest, because W was coming to speak at the OSU graduation.
Yes.
There were a lot of profanities that I heard that I didn't know what they meant. So.
But you found out later. Yes.
Yeah. My favorite one was George, pull out just like your father should have.
We chanted that most of the afternoon.
That was really fun.
And Amy was chanting along too, but she didn't know what it meant. I
didn't know what it meant.
But it sounded cool.
Yeah. So yeah, Amy has pretty much. Yeah, it is so Amy.
That's so Amy.
Kate says, "Sit burned." You burned.
I could just see little Amy in her room with her little art supplies and poster board and whatever, making her signs and working on a sick rap. Because, you know, Amy does enjoy the hip hop.
I do enjoy the hip hop. If Steven's in the chat, I will never let that go, Steven. You said I do enjoy the hip hop, and you are a white. I just love it. It's too good. I know you'll never live that down, so you might as well.
You know, embrace it.
He does enjoy the hip hop, so yes, we have that in common. We both do enjoy the hip hop. Oh, hey, Blue. Good to see you, girl.
Hi, Blue.
Yeah, but yeah, I do remember doing that little protest. And I also remember one of my good friends at the time. This was in middle school, so this was a couple of years. This would have been probably 3-ish years into the war. I had said that whoever voted for Bush was stupid. And she told a counselor, and the counselor called me in. It was like, a lot of students' parents voted for Bush. You can't say that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that was Robin, but we were still friends. We remained friends and all through high school and everything. And then later in high school, when she became a liberal, she's like, Amy, you're right. My parents are stupid to have voted for him. But of course, at the time, she found it as a personal insult. And, you know, she was, you know, you kind of believe whatever your parents do until you have more experience, you know, and you kind of change. But at least for me, my parents were correct about most of everything. So
I was a contrarian, Amy.
Some do the exact opposite. I had a friend who her parents were liberals, like they had both gone to UC Berkeley and protested everything, and she was like this raging conservative who was like fundamentalist Christian and everything.
Yeah, I guess everybody's gonna make their own path.
I was just stating facts.
Yeah, I guess I was just a contrarian. I may have kept some things to myself. You know, because most of my family was very conservative, and I'm like, that's just wrong. Yeah. You know, I just kept saying to little Anessa was just saying to yourself, that's not right. That's the wrong way to think. I don't like when you say that word, you know.
Yeah. And also, you know, speaking as someone who you know, was not out at the time but grew up, I am bi, you know, there were a lot of people that would say the most homophobic things in front of me, and it's like they didn't even know that, like, I was like a secret bi spy. Like, they had no idea that I was actually queer, and they were saying these terrible things, being like, oh, the gays, am I right? To me, like, as a fellow straight person, I had to be like, yeah, those weird gay people. Meanwhile, I like, had a crush on some classmates who were girls. So I was like, But yeah, it's really interesting to think about the, you know, kind of growing up. And also I had friends whose parents were not at all politically anything. They didn't talk about politics or anything. And so I would say, you know, something about, you know, what was going on in Iraq, or, you know, whenever there would be, you know, specifically, you know, I was a kid of the Bush era, the W, and, you know, he would have these tax cuts that would only help the rich. And so, you know, I would be saying that to my friends and they're like, Amy, how do you know this? It's like, I watch MSNBC with my mom.
And C-SPAN.
And C-SPAN. And you know what's hilarious is my friend, you remember Morgan, mom, yes. She asked me just a year ago when I posted a picture of us on Facebook, does your mom still drink wine and watch C-SPAN? And literally that night, what did I do? I drank wine and watched C-SPAN. I'm like, I am the Gail 2.0.
Yes, but I watched a lot of C-SPAN book TV. Yeah, it's true. But yeah. But we just never really excluded you from political discussions. You know, both Dad and I were pretty political. And I remember you were saying, well, I just remember I was really young when, I remember you saying this about a year ago, when Bush got elected, and I could tell the difference because I didn't remember you guys bitching about Clinton, but all of a sudden you were talking all the time about Bush.
Yeah, and I remember we were on a trip or something, and it was the Clinton era, and I remember them talking on the probably NPR if it was you driving, but it was that they were arguing about how to spend the surplus, and I never heard the word surplus again because we were always in debt.
That was the last surplus ever.
Last one, yeah. And I remember they were like, we should do it on infrastructure, we should give it education, and of course the Republicans were like, we should just give it to rich, we should just call in rich people and hand it to them, you know, like all of these different things. As you do. So I just remember that and then being like, now all I hear is debt, war, terrorism, you know. So it's just like, okay. Which, not to say that there wasn't terrorism in the 90s, of course, but took on, you know, obviously Timothy McVeigh, 96, that happened. My mom worked in Oklahoma City, so yeah, you know, that certainly was known in our household, that you know, and that was good old-fashioned domestic terrorism, homegrown Christian extremist, if you will.
I was going to say, well, they had a trial, execution, people put in prison. You never really dug into that white supremacy that fueled that. And white Christian, and this is
he got help all along the way from white supremacists. He stopped in Elohim City, which is in the border between Oklahoma and Arkansas, that is a white supremacist Christian cult where white supremacists will hide out as they're planning a terrorist attack.
And if you're gonna attach a term and you're gonna say Islamic terrorists, then you're gonna have to say Christian terrorists, okay? Because these people are also culturally, they're Christian.
Yeah,
they're not Muslim. They're not Jewish. No, they're culturally Christian. So if we're going to attach religion to terrorism, then you got to do it on each time.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great argument against a lot of things. Because do you remember, Mom, when they were wanting to put up the 10 Commandments outside the Oklahoma Capitol? And then the Oklahoma Hindu Society's like, well, we want the monkey god Lord Hanuman, a statue of him outside the Capitol. Like, you can't do that. And they're like, then why can you do the 10 Commandments? Yes, right. It's like, if it has to be everyone, every religion, then all of a sudden the Christians are like, let's back up on that. That's one of my favorites too. It's also my favorite Hindu god, of course, because it's the monkey. And the Monkey King Sun Wukong is based off of Lord Hanuman. So I love that so much. But yeah, that was one of my favorite
I would have
things.
liked to have had the monkey out there.
After I heard about that, I donated to the Oklahoma Hindu Society because I just thought that was so cool. I was like, thank you, because you know there was, and there are also Muslims in Oklahoma, but I'm Buddhist, and there's like hardly any of us in Oklahoma, so you know we needed another non-Western religion to like stand up for us.
Well, you know, it's funny, after that doesn't come up anymore, does it?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Cassie is saying she heard you mention book TV. She's asking if you have some book recommendations. I know you're mostly most of my life you were a nonfiction fan. You just now started reading some fiction, right?
Yeah, I really don't. Not anything current. I was reading it watching it several years ago, but I got good leads, and I love presidential history is a big thing I like. I'm studying their presidents' personalities because it's so interesting to me. It's just like something in history could have changed and gone all a different way if that one person hadn't had some kind of defect, or on the otherwise had some kind of real talent, and it's just that's just amazing to me. So
they're joking about the Poppy War. That's a book that I constantly plug on my channel. And I have a signed copy of the sequel that I like to show off. It's sweet hardback, which just makes me so happy. I caress this at night every time before I go to bed.
Have you heard the good news about the Poppy Wars?
I'm sure I've probably mentioned it at some point. I was going to see if we still have the banner. Because J-Dubs made it. There we go. Have you heard the good word of the Poppy War? It's a nonfiction trilogy, Mom, that's written by a Chinese American author, and it's kind of like a bit of kind of a martial arts magical tale in a fictional world that's pretty much modeled after World War II China. So you have a large land of people, China, but they're considered more poor and backward to this island to the east, which is considered very modern, aka Japan, and then they invade. So it's very much for people that are interested in World War II on the Pacific side and who love fantasy. The Poppy War is your jam. But yeah, so, everyone's backing up Stephen about the Poppy War. It's my brand. But Mom, I know growing up you always were reading like Doris Kearns Goodwin, who is a very famous biographer of presidents, and then of course your 2,000-page LBJ books that you would work on for years. Anytime we would go on vacation, you would always have the book, but you couldn't read in the car, but you would have it ready to go for when we were at the hotel.
And of course this wasn't president, but he probably would have if he'd lived. Hamilton, Ron Cherno's book that the famous Broadway play was really inspired by, so it's another thing, right? If he hadn't have gone off and gotten shot in this duel, he probably would have gone and been one of the presidents. So.
Well, we all know from the musical that he's also a rap star, so
of course.
Also,
now I've got that song in my head.
He's Hispanic, so
yes, of course. Yes, he's Puerto Rican. And Mom is also my movie buddy, too. So a lot of my favorite movies, first time I saw them were with you, like The Way We Were, my favorite suspense movie, The Others, which we covered on Cinematic Realms for Halloween. I finally got J-Dubs to watch a quote-unquote scary movie. I say that because I've watched much more jump scare, kind of movies.
I'm more the Hitchcock's.
Yes, so I watched all the Hitchcock movies with Mom.
Yes, you did.
And anytime we go, the last time we were at the theater, I believe it was Little Women. Wasn't that the last movie that we saw?
I think I remember you were saying you were going to go see it with your mom.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
last time you were here. Really?
Yeah. Our issue is not just the pandemic; it's also not being in the same place to go.
Not being in the same area. Kind of put the damper on that.
But I remember we went to see also Selma. That was out in 2014. That was a really great movie-going experience. So she was always my movie buddy because Dad can't sit down for more than an hour. Although he went with us to see the Minions movie.
If it's a super good movie or something, he will go, but usually
I know he went to go see Ford versus Ferrari. So he does if it is an interesting movie for him, he'll sit there. But Mom is definitely my my movie buddy. So
we went to see Dad went to see The Green Book, and he sat there and he sat all through it. Of course, it was a really good movie too.
What was that?
This is a good point. Hitchcock was a creepy guy, but
it came out a couple years ago. I think it got awards. The Green Book about for Black people traveling in the South, where you should stop and follow this Green Book or being real.
Yeah, and that's also if anyone has seen the show Lovecraft Country, that the first episode is a lot about that. One of the main characters is his job was to go and report on each town about how friendly it was and safe, and then he would write a tourist guide for African Americans,
right?
To know what to do and where to stay. So that's a very interesting, and also the problems with that too is you need to know which towns are sundown towns, right? So which towns you have to like make sure
you're not there after dark.
Yeah, make sure you're hunkered down somewhere. You know,
I'm really interested to see this end of this month is the 100th anniversary of the race riot in Tulsa, and they've been talking different things of commemorate, about excavating because they think there was mass graves, but there's pushback from that. It's just like, I don't know, it doesn't feel genuine to me. As far as the white people, it seems like I just feel like I know not the Black people, certainly the people who their family, it was 100 years ago, so you got people who can remember it. It wasn't even in our history books. I found out about it in the 80s from my grandpa, who was alive then and knew about it only because he was alive. And anyway, I don't know I know they've got some commemorations planned in the Black community. I think it's got some things going, but I'm feeling it from the community. I just think maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't. I see this pretty much still a pretty racist state. I mean, when there's laws that you can run down protests, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling.
Well, that's the thing. My favorite thing to do is to give an example of how that's done in communist China. And I say that with quote marks because I would say, oh, this, well, they're blocking traffic. And they said the same thing about the Hong Kong protesters. Yes. So where do we really want to be that country that, they're always, oh, communist China, there's no freedom. And then you want to then take rights away in your own country.
Yeah. That's
they
what
say,
are, right?
Yeah, they also said the same thing about like protecting Civil War monuments. Some people had even been like, they should have like military people with AK-47s. And I'm like, gee, I remember when I went to Tiananmen Square, there were some PLA officers with AK-47s waiting to shoot me if I tried anything. That's really who you want to be? It works every time because there's not much you can say.
If you've got some examples to give. Yeah. Definitely. And that's really what it's about too, is like examples. And it's so weird how they don't have examples. I saw this like blurb that they were doing a person on the street interview on Fox News, of course. I'm sure it was really, unbiased, but they asked this old man, well, how do you think Biden's doing? He goes, I think he sucks. And you go, well, what is it he's doing that you don't like? The guy couldn't say anything. He just said, well, I just don't think it's American. It's like, oh, I see. It's not going to help the Americans you consider American. That's what we're really talking about here, huh?
Yeah, and there was a fight at CU Boulder where I did my master's, and I signed a petition and joined the marches where they were wanting to establish a center for Western values. What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
It means you're not white. So it was like, oh, we need to promote like teaching of Western learning. It's like, look, any theory class you go in, you're going to learn about all the white guys. Oh, Socrates and Aristotle, blah, blah, blah. We've done this for thousands of years. I'm done. Right. Let's read Bell Hooks and Franz Fanon, right? There are plenty of people of color theorists out there that we doing great work that we can read.
And you can do both, right? Why it's not one or the other here, It's just not the exclusive and and where we have, nothing else to compare to for one thing,
Yeah, and Isabel has a great question about doing bleep the pit. Yeah, we're gonna do bleep nationalism is definitely gonna be a good because the thought, like the picture of the state and of the patriot is always male, and there's literally phrase for England, right? It's women is about perpetuating having patriotic children. It's a very natalist way to look at it. And then when women were fighting for the vote in 1919, I found that patriotic, right? But they were considered anti-American to be making a fuss about it. So patriotism really is for specifically white heterosexual land-owning males.
Right. Yes.
Not for people of color and women.
Right.
So yes, Isabel Harper, that is definitely in the works over here at BTP. We have at least 5 to 10 topics on the list. I know for sure from our document.
If you can be treated like shit from people in your country and still be patriotic, that's pretty damn patriotic, let me tell you. One thing I was saying, and I don't know if anybody would be old enough to remember this, because no one's ever told me this, but going back to feminism, back in the 70s and the ERA movement, there was a common phrase called male chauvinist capitalist pigs, right? And then the interesting thing,
they dropped the capitalist.
The capitalism was dropped. And I think if you watch also TV shows from the 60s or right when the hippie movement kind of got going, you noticed how much society and the culture just co-opted that and then sanitized it, which is what they did with the hippie movement. They kind of first made it look silly at first, and then when it got kind of bigger than what they could handle, they co-opted the styles, the language, and just took it over. Yeah, and same I think with feminism, right? We'll take over that look. We'll give you a lot of lip service to equal rights and all of that, because this is dangerous to capitalism, and thus. Yeah. The word capitalism was removed from that. Yeah, so you noticed that too, Nessie. Glad.
I sure did.
It was very odd. I don't know when it was dropped. And you don't find a lot of people around that remember that.
And Mom, a lot of the things you were mentioning about how you wanted to be a working woman and empowered, actually the way that they kind of framed you being a feminist was often about economics. It was about you bring home the bacon, right?
Yeah.
And fry it up in the pan.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And serve it to your husband on a plate.
And then wash up that pan.
Yes.
And never let him forget he's a man.
Yes. Well, he's you're working hard all day, but he's really the one that needs to relax after work with a beer.
Well,
you have to still get dinner ready. But one thing I like about millennial wave feminism that, I'm technically a part of, is that we have also had this idea of respect women's choices. So if women do want to be homemakers, that is just as valid. And I think some of the issues I have with second wave feminism is it was so focused on getting women in the workforce, which was needed. But there are some women that do want to just do want to be caretakers and homemakers.
Well, again, that was co-opting that male way, right? Your value, your worth is only in working, and we shouldn't have it like that.
Yeah. I mean, putting your value in any one particular facet denies the value in every other facet, which means you're not a complete person.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, I'm probably third wave feminist. We were like trying to have it all. We wanted it all. The working mom who's
the myth of the superwoman is what it's called often.
We had that ideal. We saw we were told that we could have it, and then we went out to achieve it. And if we weren't able to balance everything, we were failures.
Right. And you better not complain about it, right? Because this is then, we'll go back to the way it was then.
Yeah, well, if you can't handle it, then...
Right.
Yeah.
Right, we'll lose.
So there weren't these resources,
Yes.
Yeah. And, a lot of arguments against feminism are you want special treatment. And that's not, and a lot of people say, oh no, we want equal treatment. I think it really needs to be nuanced in that, you know, we don't necessarily want to do quote unquote equal treatment in everything, because, you know, if you have like maternity leave, for example, I think we should have parental leave for man or woman. But a lot of times, yes,
please
men, and that would be perfect, because you could have the mom stay home with the baby for the first, you know, bit of time, and then the dad stay home. Or if you're in a same-sex couple, you know, Mama A and Mama B, or Daddy A and Daddy B. And so you really have this idea too of that, you know, that's equality, but also there are probably still statistically going to be more women needing that leave than men. That doesn't mean then we go, well, let's just give up then because it's special treatment, right? It's different needs, right? Like we need a tampon dispenser in our bathroom. That doesn't mean we also need to put tampon dispensers in dudes' bathrooms, because they don't need it. So, I mean, unless they are a transitioning male who is still menstruating, you know what I'm saying? There's, you know, that there's certain things that one might need over the other, but that doesn't then mean that we should just throw up our hands and forget it because it can't be equal.
I just want better toilet paper in those
bathrooms. Amen.
Yeah, don't give us that. No. Give us good toilet paper, please. Thank you.
We need the like the Charmin commercials where they wipe and it doesn't leave bits. That is what we need.
There you go.
I want the good stuff that bears using.
A wipe dispenser would be amazing. I think it's universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little bit cleaner would be nice.
A little bit fresher. A little bit of pampering.
There you go.
And, you know, there is
not asking much.
And Mom, you know, I'm obsessed with Degrassi. They had an episode where the feminist club at Degrassi was wanting to get one of the bathrooms turned into a female bathroom. And the guys were like, well, then you have one more bathroom than us. And they're like, have you ever had to wait in line at the bathroom and been late to class?
Right.
No. They showed that, like, that bathroom was not being really used by men. So, and they had another bathroom on the same floor. And so it was eventually turned into a girl bathroom. And I was like, yay. So there's this idea of different needs need to be met. And that doesn't mean that it's feminism is failing or that it's asking for special treatment.
The equality is that each person's unique needs is met. You're right.
Yes. Well, because then you could then that's ableist, isn't it? Right? And something that Nessie mentioned earlier about ableism, right? Then what about the American Disabilities Act? Well, they're asking for special treatment. I mean, you could take it way too far.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we found a topic everyone could agree. We can unite America behind better toilet paper and available toilet paper that we don't have to fight over during a pandemic. That'd be nice.
Even Republicans use toilet paper.
We all wipe our butt.
Maybe they don't. Well, I don't know.
Well,
I may be assuming there.
I was worried whenever the pandemic was happening, and like early on when I really couldn't find toilet paper. I thought I was going to have to be like back in the day when I lived with an Indian man, and he would use a mug and go into the shower and do it after going to the bathroom, which I learned how to do, and it actually is clean in some ways clean, but didn't want to have to do it.
One of my coworkers' fathers he's Persian. She's Persian, and that's what he would do after every trip. He would take a shower.
I see.
Yeah.
You
learn all the things you learn. You know?
That's good. Steven said that he has seen more changing stations in men's restrooms.
I have too. When you were a baby, you just didn't see it at all.
Yeah, because Mom, she traveled internationally, especially when I was younger, and Dad has a lot of stories about having to have a blanket from the baby bag and literally put it on the stall floor to change me. I mean, ew. And it's a men's restroom stall.
You have to take her, which is like into a men's bathroom, and it's like it creeps all the men out that are in there, you know, and you know, we're all very used to seeing a mom bringing a little boy into the ladies, you know, and again, this is where this is also, you know, uptight in our society that it's, you know, yeah, it sounds like maybe they do have some changing tables more now in family rooms. So maybe that Dad wouldn't be in that situation now. So,
I mean,
well, I'm a big fan of if it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Nessie.
I was just saying, I just remember that movie. I think it was probably from the 80s, Mr. Mom.
yeah.
Where they were holding the baby up to the hand dryer in the men's room to dry the baby off, just wrapped up in toilet paper. Yeah.
I'm a big advocate of, I understand there will be concert venues and such where you have to have stalls, but if it's like what I like that Starbucks did, they have 2 bathrooms, make them both gender neutral, and there's a changing table in both, and whichever's open, you go in. The amount of times that there's been a line at the women's, like, 1 occupancy restroom, and there's literally 3 women, and I'm just like, ladies, do you mind if I just use the men's bathroom? As long as they're okay with it, because I'm kind of cutting, like, screw that. Like, we're all peeing.
Believe you me, they're wishing they had the nerve to do it too.
Yeah, I've never had an issue doing that, because like, you're gonna lock the door, and yeah, one time I opened the door and there was a guy there looking at me weird. So what? He had to wait 2 more seconds. Boo! Right. We have to wait. We have to wait a lot more than that.
Well, it's the first time I went to Europe in the mid-70s. They called them water closets.
Beat me to it. You beat me to it, Amy.
Potter.
They use it. That's it.
Oh, I love our Irish troll. He's the best.
That's a good one.
Definitely. Every channel should have their own.
So yes. Every channel should be issued a Potter.
It's part of your YouTube packaging deal. Yeah. Wow. Well, man, it's 7:15. We've kind of gone over, but it's great.
I know. I was surprised. It really went by fast. That's what happens when you're bleeping the friendly skies.
I'm telling you. Well, it's been really fun, guys. I've enjoyed it. Really, it did go fast. I didn't think it. I thought, wow, 6:50.
It's just a 2-hour phone conversation with all of your friends.
Yeah, I like it. And
this was my mom's live stream debut. So thanks everyone in the chat for encouraging her.
I was getting my close-up from an old Sunset Boulevard line.
Gail, it's just been wonderful to have you here, and thank you for coming on.
For having me on. I really enjoyed it. And
I mean, we'll have you back again for something else, I'm sure, in the future.
Thank you very much. Yes, this is a delight for me too. I would love to come back anytime.
Yeah.
For sure.
Here's a
clap
for our feminist mom.
And Papa Blackfyre is also an Unspun Yard fan, Nessie. He is. A couple of times for your mythology video live streams, he tuned in. So he said he very much enjoys you unspinning that yarn.
What embarrassed? I've heard him come home. I'd have him come in and say hi, but he'd probably get mad at me for that.
Yeah,
we won't put him on the spot.
No. My extroversion is very much inherited from my mother and not my father. He is very much a humble man.
But
considering that Dad Blackfyre doesn't like to sit for very long. I think it is a huge compliment, because our streams usually go for at least 2 hours. So
he likes, that's like kind of a movie that's not interactive, but he'll sit at the computer and go online and do stuff for a long time, because it moves and you see other people doing things, and he likes his sports forums and Stephen says you crushed it, Mama.
All right. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, thanks so much for having me.
And thanks for joining in on the Unspun Yarn, Gail. We'll have you back for something else later.
That's great.
If you have an idea for a stream, just chat us up.
All right, I'll do that.
We'd love to have you.
Join us for some more sweet feminist analysis.
Yeah.
And I think Nessie and we haven't quite planned the next BTP, but it will be wonderful and fun, I'm sure. I know we were talking about maybe doing gendered languages. That might be an interesting one to do next. And like I said, I'm really excited to do the one on beauty products in the beauty industry, because that's something as someone who didn't shave her legs for 5 years, I learned a lot about the pressures put on women. And also the last time I wore makeup before last year, because I started streaming, I was 13. So also, yeah, I have a very tenuous relationship with beauty products.
Yeah, we probably all do.
I reject them.
No.
I wear like a little bit of face powder because of the lights, so that I don't blind everybody.
Yeah, you don't want to be like Nixon on that in that TV debate.
Horrible debate with the sweating profusely.
Speaking of toxic masculinity, Nixon not wanting makeup, sure, that's your backfired, huh, buddy?
Yes, you did. You want it.
Yeah, and Stephen, that's great. That's great to know. I applaud your efforts.
And males do shave their legs. Male swimmers shave their legs, and
and wear pantyhose.
Society has not died as a result or anything.
Not yet.
Not yet have we collapsed.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to pack it in for another episode.
All right. Thanks again, Nessie.
Keep an eye out on Nessie's
Bye-bye.
All right. We'll see you all next time.
Sounds terrific. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.